They are fear, flying suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and their roads so very wide. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and their roads so very wide. Let us build a bridge of music, let us cross it with a song. Let us find another canyon, let us write another wrong. Oh, if someone should ask us where we're up and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're up and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way.
We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Thank you, Bill Staines. You're listening to Bridges Programming. This is Sunday on the Front Stoop, the longest stoop in the world. We talk to try to get people to think a little bit and to build bridges and stop hating one another and killing one another and arguing and fighting and all that stuff. And we got a couple of emails in this week. One of them was from Susan. Will tell me about that because I always get things mixed up.
Did you introduce yourself?
Oh yeah.
Everything? Do all your introductory things?
This is Bridges Programming, Sunday on the Front Stoop. This is brought to you by the Human Renewable Energy Measure, the hrem.org. If you're watching this on video, it's on your screen. Human Renewable Energy Measure coming up now, and Renew the Earth, which is renewtheearth.org.
Having to do with renewable energy and all the different renewable energies, right?
And Renew the Earth, the hrem.org, and of course bridgesprogramming.com.
Which is our broadcast.
Which is our broadcast station, and that's sponsored by the HREM. So the HREM is the impotence behind this entire program.
And you're Jeff Bell.
And I'm Jeff Bell, and that's Susan Coleman. And with us is Dennis Carius, and Dennis is on by.
Hey, great to be here, Jeff. Hi, Susan.
Hello, Dennis.
And then we may have another guest, Gracia Zanan, out of Texas, and she's actually out of.
Is a what out of Texas?
She's out of Texas.
Oh, okay. You said
she's
something.
Out of Texas, and she's her last name is Zanan.
Oh, Zanin.
Zanin. And she may be with us, and maybe her partner Max Schock. He's a professor, Dr. Max Schock. He's a mathematician, and he's out of Baylor University as well. And they are visiting here. So that's who we have today. They may join us. They may not. If they don't knock over the camera or the TV set or the wiring, we'll be in good shape. So that's the story. And we're going to be talking about today a few
human nature.
Human nature and how that works.
Or speculate on human nature, let's put it that way. It's a huge subject, so we'll just be, kind of scratching the surface right now.
Yeah, and you can call us or get a hold of us after the program on emails going through Bridges Programming. And we normally get somehow or other we get our information through that. And it's not easy to get a hold of us, we were told, but we know we do get emails occasionally and a fair amount of them. So Susan's going to read about what the
I made a little summary.
The footnotes are today.
Right. And the article came to us through an email people forwarded to us. And it was on the Humans, I think it's called the Humans and Nature website, but I think it originated somewhere else. But the author is David Burash, Barash, And I think, Max, hello, be careful,
Careful
with the wire.
Careful with the wire. Another one right over there. Okay. Yeah.
Ah!
And see, so you can either sit here or have a seat right
It's the
here.
easiest thing.
Careful with the wire. We have a maze of
We
wires
have,
in our little studio here.
actually, it's like going into
A maze.
it's
This
very,
is
very
Dr.
challenging.
Max Shock. And I'm going to see if I get. He just woke up. Oh, he woke up
Well, we all just woke
4
up.
o'clock this morning. And and maybe Gracia will join us afterward. But Dennis, can you see Max? Are you online yet to see Max or not?
Oh, not yet, but I can let you know in about 10 minutes.
Okay, good enough.
And he doesn't look as emaciated as Bucky did.
He doesn't look like Bucky at all.
No.
But maybe 100 years from now,
Bucky,
there's Bucky over there.
Oh. But he's not on today. But we're referring to our guest last time when we resurrected our Buckminster Fuller.
Okay, so Susan's going to read what we're
read
talking about today, and then Dennis, you can comment on it, and I hope Max will. And I had a conversation last night with someone, and we talked about health foods, and if in fact we can get rid of the economy the way it stands now, we can stop killing one another, and there will be no such things as lousy quality food because they're not trying to make money on it. They're going to be benefiting in cooperation with humanity rather than competition.
Yeah, but first, let's consider whether or not we can cooperate,
Let's see
and
that.
that's what today is about. This is an article by David Burash, B-A-R-A-S-H, and we're going to refer to his article. We discuss some of and this is my summary today, we discuss some of the pros and cons of our human nature. Do we have, quote, insufficient prosocial nature, as David asserts? Is culture our only hope for civilizing our primitive id? Can our ability to cooperate help? It is suggested that genes act to benefit themselves. Is there an altruistic gene that can be encouraged? What would Buddha do? A listener recently sent us an article in which Henry Makow asserts, quote, that the world is in the thrall of a satanic cult. The correct paradigm is humanity versus this cult, its agents and dupes, unquote. So here we've gone from one extreme to another. Are we capable of cooperation, altruism? Do we have some genes that would assist us in this kind of progress, in our social contract or our social agreements with each other? I'm going to start by just reading the first part of this article by David Burash, and he entitles it, The Id, the Altruist, and the Buddhist. And I'll just go right into it because there's no point in just reading some of the things they take out of it when they want to get you interested in reading something. In this short, let's see, let's put in evolutionary terms. Okay, here he's talking about Freud. He proposed that human beings are stuck between two powerful competing forces, an array of deep, troublesome internal inclinations, including aggression and, not surprisingly, sex, which he designated the id, and the id translated from the Latin means it, and an equally potent array of external imposed rules and regulations mandated by culture, which essentially require our species to rein in its id. The problem, as Freud saw it, is that a substantial part of human nature is encapsulated in that id, which, if allowed to proceed unchecked, is liable to generate no end of mayhem in pursuit of selfish individual benefit. Then David goes on to say, let's put this in evolutionary terms that Freud did not employ. Insofar as natural selection has outfitted living things, human beings included, with behavioral tendencies that maximize their, quote, fitness, their success in projecting their gene into the future, The result, although potentially fitness enhancing for the individuals involved, can be disastrous for society, making civilization difficult and perhaps impossible to live in, with individuals and their genes jockeying competitively for success, social, biological, sexual, evolutionary. The outcome for civilization is bleak. And I would say right here that that premise that the success of the individual is what nature is encouraging, I don't think is the right premise, because if you want a species to succeed, and that's what has to happen, if a species is going to succeed, people have to all be clever or able or healthy enough to continue.
But they have to work in cooperation.
One individual can't just keep repeating themselves into the future. I don't know, I don't quite follow but anyway, quote, what's needed therefore are restraints on those id-driven tendencies, and those would be aggression and desire to reproduce yourself. Another way of saying this, looking only to our biology reflected in our most primitive indwelling id-powered psychology, human beings, like other animals, have very little conscience. And I wouldn't accept that, just me speaking, but I think we have a great deal of conscience. But this is the author speaking from, his conclusions about what he's read. So then he says, enter the civilizing effect of culture. It puts shackles on our nastier, more troublesome biological given tendencies. In effect, our inclinations to behave for our own selfish benefit, which is to say, without conscience. Of course, culture does other things as well, but for the current topic, I'm focusing on its role as a mediator between the id and civilized life. By ameliorating the worst and most disruptive aspects of our aggressive, sexually pushy, and insufficiently prosocial nature, culture ultimately makes civilization possible. For Freud, this function of culture is analogous to the superego of norms inculcated by one's parents. Culturally mediated restraint also benefits the acculturated. Once a sufficient number of people internalize civilized norms of behavior, anyone who stands outside that system is liable to be shunned, incarcerated, or even injured or killed. This situation isn't altogether cozy or comfortable. However, according to Freud's analysis at least, when people's ids are inhibited, the result is frustration or neurosis. So we are caught between the devil of an untrammeled id, ravenous and potentially self and other destructive, and the deep blue sea of submission to the civilization's imposed conscience, or i.e. self-restraint, with its accompanying emotional distress. Given that, we have already gone quite far down the road of civilization and its amenities, we have no choice but to keep going and make the best of things. I can stop there. And do we have no choice but to keep going in this direction?
No,
Yes, I would ask.
Now, Dennis, I had a tough time following this. Did you have a tough time following this?
Yes.
So did I.
Okay.
Dennis, did you have a tough time following this article?
Well,
Yes, I did, and I was also at the same time going online to watch you on the screen.
you were distracted. Well, the crux of the matter, which you finally got to here, he's saying that we're between the devil of an untrammeled id, and that is the selfish, self-preserving, he calls it ravenous, potentially self and other destructive, and the deep blue sea of submission to civilization's imposed conscience. And that is, the social environment that we all live in makes demands on us and tries to control, what Freud called our most primal urges, which are aggression and sex. And he's saying that that it's only our culture that's kind of restraining that. But then by restraining that, Freud would suggest that you become neurotic because you're not able to express those things which are your deepest human.
Now I got it. Now
Okay,
that makes sense.
all right.
In other words, he's saying that
So
the basic thing is, according to Freud, a sexual drive is the most important.
and our aggression, our individual
and then because we have
assertion.
aggression, that we say we got to kill people because we got to make sure we are the
We
survivors.
survive and our families survive.
But if we try to, because we have a brain, I guess we're trying to say, well, we can't kill people. There's good and bad people. There's evil in this world. So we're not the evil ones. They are the evil ones. So therefore, we have to get rid of the evil ones. And then you have another email that came through to us.
Yeah, but let's not leap to that
Okay,
yet,
go ahead.
because he's suggesting that only from culture, and I think he suggests also at some point in here that our parents sort of helped to give us some moral compass. But I think there's an assumption here, which many religions make, is that humans are inherently evil.
That's right.
And I'm not sure that I can go
So you have
down that road at all.
There's two mixed emotions.
I can't go down that road.
No, there's two mixed emotions. So you have the inherently evil by some of the major religions, and then you have that, and you're born evil. And then of course you got your parents saying you got to do good, you can't hurt people. And then you come into the real world that we have now, and you got to kill those people because they want to take your stuff. They're evil people. And Dennis, Dennis, you would say that 1% of the population, is that what you normally refer to the evil people as the 1%ers and then we're the 99% or 99.9% of the good people. So you want to wipe out.
That's pretty simplistic.
I don't know if those numbers are right. Number one, because I don't know.
And nor is the division.
And I don't think we're that smart as a species yet. And I think we're pretty stupid as a species yet. And the trouble with that is when we think we're real smart, there's no other possibilities. And I think there's always possibilities, but I'd like to try to figure out. My goal, though, is not to try to figure it out into detail, but my goal is to say we know we're killing people. We know where people are starving all around the world. We know that there are dictators and we would call them evil people, but I would say that they're part of the system that we have to deal with. And the question is, how do we deal with them? So,
yes, Jeff.
Go ahead.
Yes, Dennis, can I go even a little further on that? Because when we say they're evil and then we send our troops over to those countries, and we even say they're terrorists, like those Muslims or whatever, I put that in quotations because I think what makes them, quote, evil, end quote, is the oil that's under the ground over there.
That's one of the things, and I'll agree with you on that. But the reason why
how does that make them evil?
But the reason why the oil is so obvious is because they're trying to make money on that oil. And if there was no money involved with that oil, and you can take that oil and use it for the condiment to help humanity work together, and take the profit motive out of that oil, then you wouldn't have the appearance of someone being evil. But we need to move forward, and the only way what's stopping us, in my opinion, is the way the money works. And if you look around, what's going on throughout the world is, Syria and Africa and all other parts of the world. I can't even mention them all. That we have a problem with. You have to make money. And most people I know, even if they're
non-profit,
they have to make enough to stay alive. Let's suppose non-profits who don't want to make a profit, they have to go get money coming in from grants to stay alive. Now, and Dennis, if I cut your supply off, you're retired and you have some incomes coming in. If I cut your income off, you would die. I mean, you would have no food, you'd have no shelter. You couldn't pay your taxes, you couldn't drive your car. So money, because of the way our system works, is terribly important. And everybody is chasing money, not chasing an ability to have a good quality of life. I was talking to someone last night, we talked about food. And they're saying, well, you need to eat good quality food so you have a better quality of life. But the reality here is not there would be no bad quality of food if we all worked together and they took the money out of it. There'd be no GMOs. There'd be only people thinking about how do we help humanity with good quality of life, good medical support, good quality of end life products that we are very involved with now, especially at my age. I mean, I'm saying this. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you're going.
I'm going off topic.
Fearlessly into the future. I'll go back to the article because he does then go to another note here, which isn't so glum, and he says that the view from evolutionary biology isn't so unrelievedly glum. Human beings, like all other social animals, and that's what we are. We're social animals. That's what you have to keep in. We're individuals, but we need each other, just like other herd animals. And I mean, you can see examples of this everywhere in nature. And it's for safety, it's for learning, it's for acquiring food and shelter. Anyway, human beings, like all other.
I want to interject that. In my opinion, from what I see in my life, I learn more from other human beings, even when I argue with them. I learn more from other human beings, and I think that's the most important thing.
Then what?
Than anything. We learn, we hug each other, we enjoy, at least I do, I enjoy interacting with other human beings. And if a baby isn't touched while they're first born, they will die. And I'd like to look at if you look at zeitgeist moving forward, that's one of the better examples of the psychiatry of what's going on there. So it's a good video to see. It's a long one. I'm sorry to say most people fall asleep on it, but it's a really good video to see.
See it in sections. Okay, human beings, like all other social animals, also have deep-seated proclivities for cooperation and coordination. Inclusive fitness theory, for example, that's some theory. I'd have to look that up. I didn't look it up when I read this earlier. But that theory, inclusive fitness theory, emphasizes that genes act to benefit themselves, notably identical copies of themselves residing in other bodies, which we call relatives. Offspring are thus simply a special class of such relatives. Parental care and attention is just one example of genes looking out for themselves. So let me see if I understand what he just said here. That genes that maybe you're carrying somehow recognize similar types of genes in someone else. Is that what he just said?
The only genetic structure,
yeah.
and it's going to keep on.
Genes act to benefit themselves,
mimicking themselves, right?
Notably, identical copies of themselves residing in other bodies, which we call relatives. Okay, so we recognize our relatives, maybe because we grew up with them, or whatever, but maybe we also recognize genes in people that aren't
we should get this guy
our direct relatives
that
may be similar. So then that's what draws people to each other to marry and have children. I don't know. Offspring are thus simply a special class of such relatives. Parental care and attention is just one example of genes looking out for themselves. When Richard Dawkins entitled his justly influential book, The Selfish Gene, he was entirely correct, although he could, with equal accuracy, have called it the, quote, altruistic gene, since much of the time genes act selfishly by aiding others. What is selfish at the level of genes can therefore emerge paradoxically as altruism at the level of our bodies. So that's a complicated way of saying that we may choose in favor of genes that are altruistic.
Hold on. I want to interject something, because for the psychologists I've heard speak on zeitgeist, they're saying genetically there's no. That is totally not right, because they're saying that the influences of the society, because of the economy, there's definitely genes that are
your environment.
Their environment is what creates those. They can be a dominant gene. Like if there's a dominant gene that creates murder, the economy, even the murderous theoretical genetic.
I've heard that theory too.
But-
There are
but-
two sides to this.
Right.
Your environment is very much the trigger for
So-
whether or not certain genes assert
So
themselves.
none of this is gospel. It's just,
No,
it's just
no.
they're-
I'm bringing
they're
it
in
out
theory. So
because this is what our author has written here.
right.
But the genes can have certain tendencies
Right.
that we
Well,
carry.
let's buy that.
And the environment then, will either trigger or not trigger these tendencies to whatever degree. And it depends,
according to
on what you
according to 3 or 4 of the
experience.
psychologists from around the world on Zeitgeist, they address this issue, and not only they address it, they explain the trigger of the issues.
If the environment, and this Buckminster Fuller would agree with also, is that he felt you can't change people, but you can change the environment around them, and this changes them.
Right, the behavior.
And this can change behavior. So if whatever is happening around people encourages cooperation or encourages what he calls altruism in this, or the altruistic gene, that will be favored, by
Because of the environment.
because of the environment. It's but it's a dance between these things.
Right,
It's not a oh well. And then this David Burash goes on to say, much of our behavior is thus predisposed toward other directed benevolence. Well, that sounds good. To a degree that would surprise the good Professor Freud. Even here, however, culture has a crucial role to play, in part because our all too human penchant for aiding kin, which is nepotism, we know all about that, can itself become a problem if carried too far. So we need culture to restrain our gene-focused altruism by inculcating rules whereby our tendency to be nice to our relatives doesn't metastasize into being unfairly nasty toward everyone else. Yeah, well, it's a lot. There are other ways in which evolutionary biology has predisposed us to altruism and benevolence, either directly by generating a prosocial conscience or inducing what's already there to be more overt. Biologists now recognize, for example, that people are substantially influenced by the prospect of reciprocity, essentially. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. An important cause of a, quote, bad conscience is when someone does you a favor and you don't reciprocate. This is evolutionarily relevant since natural selection would tend to favor individuals who, quote, cheat in such exchanges, as modeled, for example, in the famous prisoner's dilemma. Now, I didn't look that up, and I was going to, but you can look up what that's about unless somebody here knows what the prisoner's dilemma is.
Go ahead.
I can't remember the details.
Right. Something about the way a prisoner will behave, probably toward their guards in order to get what they need. But this cheating, natural selection, I don't believe favors the cheater in the long run.
It does in this society now.
That's a short-term
Right. symptom
of our environment, but the cheating works within the short-term system that we work in, as far as our economics and our social contract that we seem to be acting under right now. The cheating and the lying, that's the short way to get to what you want. But ultimately, in the long run, this is destroying the possibility of our species surviving into the future, which is, nature's idea of success. And so I wouldn't call cheating a natural selection I wouldn't call that nature's choice. I would call that a short-term symptom of the type of economics and social contract that we now practice within. And I don't think that that's the right terms in which to put, our tendencies now and our leaders and our politicians to lie or to people to cheat each other in order to get what they want. These are all imitation type behaviors that are very useful in the short term, but very damaging in the long run. And
because it doesn't take
destructive.
It doesn't take into account that the small group of people, as Dennis, you would call them the 1%ers or the 0.1%ers, that you would say that they're the dysfunctional governments that are killing their people, or they're letting people starve to death around the world. And as Bucky says, we're all in this together. And so in the long term, using this kind of thinking process will eventually wipe out our species.
Well, then he goes on to say, touches a little bit on this. If lots of people cheat, then reciprocating systems such as gift giving and economic trade, even many friendships, would fall apart. And that's exactly what happens.
Right.
This kind of thing breaks apart families, it creates divorces, it creates insecurity amongst the children of
and murder and literally murders.
And that's at the beginning level, and as you work up and you have nations behaving this way and cheating and lying in order to get what they consider an economic or profit advantage or a power advantage, you have then that same distrust, that same breaking down of any kind of possibility of alliance that could possibly be
we are at our
creative.
We're at our halfway mark. Dennis, I see that you're on the air. You're watching us live now, and at least I think there's several people online. Are you there? Were you able to tune us in? Technically, are we working well?
Yes, I see you all. I see Susan. No beard, no mustache. I see your guest with a mustache, and then I see Jess with the beard and the mustache.
Yeah, we could have put a hat on, Max.
Okay. Well, anyways. So, and the point, I want to thank the person who sent us in this email.
We only have a little bit more to the article.
But
hear his conclusions.
But we want to. This is a very interesting part because it takes into account all the facts that we try to put out on the program, and we're not saying we're right. We're just saying that we need something different to benefit this humanity, and we're doing something wrong. It's obvious, and
it's obvious because of the symptoms that we're living with.
And we're trying to find the solutions.
We're still killing each other.
Anybody out there can give us their own. Everybody's entitled to their own stupid opinion, and we feel as though we have ours, and you may have yours, but we may be able to put these stupid opinions together so we come together on Bridges programming.
Other social animals.
Okay, let me just do the station identification. This is Bridges programming, and you're listening to Sunday on the Front Stoop. We have Wednesday World Call In. We have some other people doing programming on Bridges programming. You're welcome to do your own show if you choose. We will, or program, as I like to call them. Anything that benefits humanity or thinks they're benefiting humanity, do it. You're welcome to do it. We give you your own hour, your own time. And then this is all the impotence that the sponsor of this is the Human Renewable Energy Measure, the HRM.org. And if you can understand that, go online, check it out. There's no head on this snake. You do what you think is what you should do to help the world around you. And it's all about a simple idea that all human beings have to have their basic needs, not their wants, their basic needs met for about an hour of their time a day in their lifespan, which is about, of course, Mac gets mad when I say 80 years of age, but we all are getting there. And life is routine. Nature or God has a routine, and they're benevolent dictators. And it's always going, and it should be. There's nothing wrong with that. We just have to start doing the best we can for all of humanity. I think, Kate, Susan's going to continue on with this email we received 2 days ago.
Going back to David Burash, B-A-R-A-S-H, because Burash, his article. He goes on to say that because things can fall apart, and we see that when cheating and lying and wars, everything, the tendency is toward disintegration of trust between people, trust between nations. This may, quote, induce us to feel a sense of obligation toward fairness in our interactions with others, tweaking our conscience if we behave otherwise, and thereby encouraging us to be good reciprocators. Freud and Darwin gave us a lot to consider, but what can we learn about conscience from Buddha? I have a special fondness for Buddhism, particularly its more recent manifestation as, quote, socially engaged, quote, rather than meditatively withdrawn from our responsibility to the world around us, a world to which we are genuinely connected. Buddhism, many teachings include recognizing each person's, quote, Buddha nature, which notably involves recognizing our inner connectedness with all other beings and encouraging its emergence and flowering. This is supposed to result not only in personal enlightenment, but in a kind of social and ecological conscience that induces followers to act for, quote, the benefit of all sentient beings, unquote. It's not clear to me that our inner nature is so one-sidedly benevolent. As argued above, there are aspects of human nature that are downright troublesome and conscience-free, and which therefore need to be corralled by prosocial, civilizing culture. Other parts are worth embracing and nourishing. Put it all together and you get that complex, contradictory stew that is humanity, seasoned with culture to inculcate conscience while simultaneously struggling against some of culture's more troublesome influence. Maybe that's our true Buddha nature. Well, I think he tries to bring it all together at the end and doesn't quite succeed, but he does bring out, in my opinion, that's just my opinion, about the influence of Buddha and his teachings way back in the day.
Would you just read back in that part right there?
Yeah. Its teachings include each person's Buddha nature, which notably involves recognizing our inner connectedness with all other beings.
That's the part I wanted to bring out.
Yeah,
I didn't want to interrupt
that's important.
But when we say interconnecting, the economy has made it so our goal is to make money. And people say to me, I've asked someone, they said, what do you think built that building? And they said, it was money. I said, no, it wasn't money. It was people that built that building. If we wipe out a forest because we want to put a building on to make money, we're destroying a tremendous amount of nature.
Or we want to make a pasture for cattle to graze, for the meat industry. Right?
We have to look at this thing as look at the whole picture, not just one little part of it. And that's where we're missing. We are such a stupid species because we're still doing damage to each other and of course other species, other parts of the planet.
It's being encouraged at this point.
And it's being encouraged because of the economic system. And I think that now that came in last week, and I thought it was worth, and Susan thought it was worth doing the.
Well, these are things that people think about. Do we have sufficient pro-social and cooperation tendencies in our human nature? Well, there's no way to approve one way or the other, but right now it seems that our antisocial and more antisocial aspects are being emphasized because we have for so long continued to kill each other in wars, and this is
for thousands and thousands of years,
and that should have stopped long ago.
It couldn't because I can't blame the species because we're still evolving.
Because
we're still learning, and I think that we just need to stop thinking how smart we are and say there is something missing, and we've got to think of a different way. And I don't know the way. I'm just suggesting there's one possible way, and there may be without killing one another and without poisoning our water and our air, with making sure we have the best possible foods without having to research them and argue which is the best or which is not the best. We need to make sure we know how to do this, and this is by understanding that there's always more to learn. And I'm asking people the best. information I have gotten out of about maybe 30 or 40 different things I've studied and looked at. And the easiest one for people to get to in this time frame they may have, if they even have that much time left to do in the course of a day, is Zeitgeist Moving Forward. It's a really well done documentary which covers everything. It does not, however, give you the HRM cure. we're not there yet, but it may be. Now, on the other side of the fence,
well, if you accept Henry Makow's assertion that the world is in, quote, the thrall of a satanic cult, then everything out there is dangerous, and you have to then pick out
this is the other side of the coin.
The biggest players are, and you got to take them down.
Right. This is the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
Get rid of the evil people, and that's
And
where
that's
Henry
a very
Makow.
simplistic
Right.
way of looking at.
Now, do you have a thing about Henry?
I do have a whole article that he wrote, but I have to bring the computer up here. Why don't you guys talk, and I'll get the
Okay,
computer.
if you get the computer, try not to trip over the wiring. Anyway, Dennis, what do you think, Dennis?
Can
No,
we
it's
behave?
interesting. I really think we need to reform things if they ever get dysfunctional. And I think, oh, go ahead.
Are they dysfunctional now?
I would say yes, yes.
But they're not
Could I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Because, yeah, it's great to see your guest on the screen, but what does he think about what we're talking about?
I'm a mathematician, so I don't think.
Oh. Wow.
I'm very, how to say, confused when it comes to discussing social issues, sociological issues. When I say confused, I don't have the language and I don't have the background, or, well, I just don't feel comfortable in a discussion about sociological issues.
See, now, go ahead, Dennis.
Well, no, it's just because a mathematician, to me, is like the very top of the line of you do, in other words, it's a 100% correct, because there's no room for what we believe, or, you know, what is mathematician. If I just say what is 10 plus 7, there's only one answer that's correct. Every other answer is wrong. So a mathematician is somebody who's always, you know, going 100% for the correct answer.
For the truth, you're saying.
Well, I'm sorry, that holds true at a certain level, but we have terrific arguments that have gone on literally for centuries about various theoretical Poincaré conjecture, for example. And there's a large number of very important to us in mathematics conjectures, theorems, and whose proofs are in dispute. So it's not as simplistic as it may seem from the general public's experience with what they call mathematics. I don't know if that.
Okay, Dennis. What he did is he blew a bubble in your thinking process.
No, I didn't.
No, but I mean, it's interesting. What he just said is very interesting, but I still believe with mathematics, there's only one correct answer to almost any question. That's just my dumb opinion.
In other words, you're saying that if 1 and 1 has to make 2, it can't make 3.
Right, yes.
Okay, but I want to bring something.
Well, there's also theoretical mathematics, which is
I want to bring out.
level.
I want to bring out what Max mentioned. He said he doesn't feel comfortable by discussing. He's not qualified or doesn't understand the language of the social, the way the sociological parts of what we're talking about. And there are people who study that, and they are social, and that's what's on Zeitgeist. But as a human being in the species, you are just as qualified, and Dennis is an engineer, and he's just as qualified. Who do we think is more qualified to say that our child may be shot tomorrow because of an upheaval in this country. You know, I mean, this could, go ahead.
First of all, there are a lot of people who would argue that mathematicians are not human. So
Well, there are a lot of people who argue that human beings came from different planets. Dennis would have a theory about that.
Mathematicians came from another planet.
And they're also put.
You know, there are people that say that Nikola Tesla was not a human; he was somehow an alien.
An alien. But no, what I'm trying to bring out is that there is. I don't think that Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump or Putin or any world leader has any better ability, in my opinion, than you or Dennis Carrius or anyone.
better ability to do what?
To solve the problems of the social problems of the countries, the arbitrary countries that they're ruling, and I mean that very seriously. The arbitrary countries, and they're man-made borders. They're not natural borders. Canadian border and the U.S. border is a man-made distinction, a line. We don't need to go over to Canada or Mexico or France or Germany or any other country with a man-made border and say those people are evil. And I think that as a species, we must come together, and one person that is elected, again, with man's laws, have no value for the actual laws, the true laws of food, shelter. These are things like a tree needs or a plant needs, and a lifespan like a tree. We all human beings have a very similar value, the same to start with. They need things just like any living thing. That's nature's point. However, human beings are different because we have wants, and our wants are all different than one another. And that's the whole point. I want Susan, if you can get to the second part.
Well, you just want some overview about Henry Makow's
Right.
Theory, and this article was written in 2008. So I'm imagining that his feelings haven't changed too much since then, but they could have. Okay. As my readers know, I suspect that most competing groups' ideologies actually have been created or subverted by a single force, a satanic cult, the Illuminati, Sabbatian, Frankist Jews, and Kabbalist Freemasons. This clique is empowered by a cartel of cartels, beginning with World Central Banking based in London. It uses MI6 and CIA, the Mossad, and other intelligence agencies as instruments and controls the media and most politicians. My working hypothesis is that most wars, conflicts are orchestrated by this satanic cult. The same people secretly manipulate events on both sides to undermine, quote, all collective forces except our own, and establish world government tyranny. In other words, an occult elite is waging war on humanity, and we don't even know it. And that he underlined. So there's your hypothesis.
Okay, now because we're running out of time, and I want to make sure that we have
this dark image.
We have many people who call in on this program and send us emails, and they do talk about, and we would call them.
You talk about what?
To talk about the cults. There's a name for
the satanic cults.
Yeah, there's a name for that group. We have both sides calls in on this. So we have people who believe in conspiracy theories, and we have people who believe in, of course, the opposite thing. And we're trying to bring these two groups together and say, maybe there is no satanic cult. Maybe you may be wrong. And you may be right. I'm not going to argue with you whether there is a satanic cult or there's a Illuminati or whatever you want to believe is fine with me. However, let's look what's in front of our noses today. And because my nose is harder to do that. But if you look in front of your noses, then we know that people are starving all over the world. We know that. There's no doubt in our mind. But we also know that our kids are working harder than ever, including back before the old days when people had to dig the soil and survive. So there's something radically wrong here in what we're doing. And that's what we can see. We don't have to go deep down. So this is someone who I would consider the fringe. And then we have people who would consider the, how do we fix it? Like the Pope has been talking about, we have a problem. So we're into this whole two sides to the story. And that's why I wanted to bring both of these out. We had the guy who's talking about altruistic, but the answer to this, in my opinion, would be, we had someone just walked in and she's not going to be on the program, but she's walked in too late. But that's okay. And she's taking photographs of this beautiful outside we have here. We are a very lucky species. We are a very lucky part of the world here. We have pretty much everything we want. But I can watch out because watch out! You're going through wires.
Oh, Dennis has a question.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Okay, you mentioned the Pope.
Yeah.
But the Pope, yes, I mean, he came over here from a country where Rome is. It's called Italy. I think the Pope is doing a great job. This is like the top of the list of popes that I really thought were trying to save our planet. I was just wondering if your guests agree with me.
Go ahead.
I dare not disagree with you because my wife agrees with you. So I think you should hear from her about the Pope.
We have only 9 minutes.
Okay.
Totally agree with you.
But the problem, the point I'm making is that since many years ago, long time ago, thousands of years ago, people have been talking about the inadequacies and slavery and whatever. I think right now, for the first time in history, we're able to measure in energy units the amount of food people need, the amount of shelter people need, and we know the lifespan more or less, close enough for science. And once we can accept that and we agree upon that number, that's the way we do the GDP, and then we can correlate the energy unit compared to the economic number. And no human being should ever have to beg for food or shelter or anything such as what's happening now. When you see someone with a sign up there and they look pretty much emaciated and they said, I'll work for food, that takes a chunk out of a human being. And when you hear that, when you see children starving and you see drones being dropped in the name of whatever name they want to call them, it's not good for humanity. Dennis, I see that. I'm glad you're able to see us. Technical stuff is working reasonably well. Susan, she did.
Do you want me to read any more about Makow?
We're going to read a little more about a conspiracy theorist, but I'm going to break into it before the show ends or the program ends.
This is Henry Makow.
We're going to give you about 6 more minutes of Henry Makow, and then we're going to cut out with our energy song.
He mentioned something that he calls the protocols, and the author, and he says that he feels the author was a Rothschild, Lionel Rothschild, writes that the goal is, quote, to wear everyone out by dissension, animosities, feuds, famine, inculcation of disease, want, until the Gentiles see no other way of escape except by appeal to our money and power, unquote. And then he goes on to say, who will ever suspect then that all these peoples were stage managed by us according to a political plan which no one has so much as guessed at in the course of many centuries, unquote. Creating conflict, and this is the voice of the author now, creating conflict makes fiendish sense. If they were to declare their true intention, they would meet opposition from all sides. Instead, they create and hide behind competing forces and manipulate the outcome, ensuring that, quote, true believers, quote, die in the process, the uncorrupted, he puts in quotes. Everyone is so busy fighting, they can't see the real foe and the real agenda. The conspirators recognize each other through hand signs And he's saying that there's a special Masonic handshake that he
It could be. I don't mean to laugh.
Hillary Clinton and who else? Let me see. Bernie Sanders
Bernie
and Hillary
Sanders.
Clinton during the debate. Interesting. So anyway, if you're looking for these things, I mean, it's
You'll
possible.
find them, right?
I remember when I was pregnant, I looked around, I could see pregnant people everywhere. When I didn't notice them before, you know. It just depends on what mindset you're in, but he's seeing this. Okay, so then he has some random conflicts that fit into this paradigm that he wants to mention.
Okay, I have to cut you short there because we have only about 3 minutes left of the program. There are, we have Paul Makow who talks about belief systems, belief magic. He wrote a book. You can get that on our programming.
And he goes a lot into this.
He goes a lot into this kind of conspiracy stuff. You're looking at if you go on to Renew the Earth, you'll see an Illyria's World book. It's a free download for children. It's about 15 pages. It's a cartoon about climate change, which we saw on the opposite side of the conspiracy theories. We think that maybe there's not really conspiracy stuff going on, but there's definitely something going on with the economy. And we need to fix that economy in such a way that no one dies. And that's our goal, to bring people together. Bridges Programming is here to give everybody a voice, whether they're conspirators, theorists, is fine with us, as long as you're willing to keep an open mind. And we're not saying we agree with it, disagree with it. That's their belief system, and I have to respect their belief system. Dennis, do you want to add anything to this program?
Well, thanks for asking, Jeff, because I really do agree with people who say that we're ruining the planet with climate change, global warming. Nobody wants to get behind the car and breathe what's coming from that exhaust pipe, and that's what's going in the atmosphere, and it's not going away. The carbon dioxide is doing this, and we can solve the problem. All those roofs out there, there's so many roofs. You could put solar panels on those roofs, and we can get away from fossil fuels, go over to
many
solar
roofs
energy,
as there are stars in the sky.
Dennis, are there more roofs than stars in the sky?
Are there more roofs? That's a good question. You know, there's 100, you wouldn't believe this, in the sky, you know, just in our galaxy, there's 400 billion stars, not million, 400 billion stars just in the Milky Way galaxy, and there's 100 billion galaxies out there. So maybe if we ever ruin this planet, we might get visited from above. People who maybe...
I don't know, I think that they would try to stay away from us.
You're going into the conspiracy theories again, Dennis. I don't want to do that. I want to face the reality.
Why would a more advanced species try to rescue a species that's messing up their planet like we are? I mean, why would they would probably give us a wide berth as far as with their spaceship. They'd go to another planet where things were being done with a better outcome.
Well, maybe they came here 8,000 years ago.
Dennis, thank you very much. Max, thank you. Thank you guys for listening.
Bye, Dennis.
Please talk about the Human Renewable Energy Measure, the atrium.org. Check it out. Tell your friends about it. Get that message out. Don't join no clubs. Don't give us your Social Security number. Enjoy. Thanks again for listening.
Fossil fuel affects our lives like ripples on a lake. Cars and farms and factories and trucks. Supplies go down and prices soar, our futures are at stake. And when it's gone, it won't come back and we'll be out of luck. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone? Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even trash converts to biofuels. Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news of flow. Energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone? Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.
Thanks you all for listening.